So I just bought this Ford 8N. So we're full of mouse nest in there. Yeah, it's going. Now, to set the points, you can adjust all of the cylinders. And I started off just doing wiring. I'm kind of wondering if maybe the intake, if the exhaust is stopped up with so much stuff. Blowing mouse nest out. Now there's no radiator, so it's gonna heat up fast, but there's no air coming out of there. That's just steam. We're going to have to split the tractor. That's why we have it outside here, ready to split with the engine hoist on the shop floor there. A couple pieces of plywood. So it's a brisk Saturday morning, a little bit of snow flurries, not a big deal. Get this tractor split. So the plan is we already got the linkages off from the carburetor. I guess this one's still here. But we're gonna take the steering linkages off right here. So these are just 1 1/4 inch, and then those are 11/16.
So is it tapered on there or something?
Alright, so change of plans. Decided to do it from here instead. Take off this ball joint. Just use this pickle fork. It's gonna ruin that seal, but I think I can get a new one. Now we can unbolt this. Alright, now all that's holding the tractor together is the bolts around the bell housing. Well, I'm not an expert, but I don't think clutch is supposed to be full of water. So, you see right there, the bell housing was just full of water. I guess there's no drain hole in the bottom. We'll have to add a drain hole or figure out why that one isn't working. gonna take my designated hammer screwdriver. Somewhere over. Now I can take the pressure plate off. These are 1/2 inch. Alright, I got these extractor sockets. Let's see if they work. Yeah, these things are nice. Yeah, I think we can still use that clutch disc. Medium flat rate box of So right now, as far as parts, we're looking at new clutch disc, of course. We don't want a 2-piece clutch disc. New pressure plate, because this one's mouse nested. And then on the flywheel here, a new pilot bearing. And then also a new ring gear, because you can see here we're missing bunch of teeth, and that's why it was rattling so much. So I've never changed a ring gear before, so it should be pretty interesting. Now we can get the throw-out bearing off. You can see we cleaned it up a lot in here. That was too easy. And the clutch forks move, but I think this tube is supposed to move on here. Now let's see if we can get this ring gear off of here. You can see with it cleaned up, you can see how bad it is. So my strategy for removal is going to be the air hammer. While we wait for the clutch kit to come in for the Ford 8N, we're gonna take off the tires and rims, and then we can clean them up and put some paint on them. Feels like it has water in it. Alright, now we're gonna try and get the brake drums off. And to remove flatheads like this, it's really nice to have an impact driver. Now onto the left side. Now the brake drum should just come right off. The drum looks good. The shoes are a different story. They're not supposed to be covered in oil like that. Alright, let's get this broken off bolt out of the flywheel.
Warn people around here, kind of well, don't look.
That was too easy. First try. Now we still have to remove the ring gear. So the idea here is that I cut a slit down it and then drive the chisel through, and that should cause the ring gear to crack and then loosen off, and it should come right off. There we go. That was easy. So now we have to put the ring gear on. This is the new one. You can see all the teeth are perfect. And it goes on with the flat side facing up. This side goes down.
Now it's bouncing. Is that the way it goes? Do something big.
It can go any way you want. So the Ford looks a lot different. My dad cleaned it all up, wire brushed it, and primed and painted it with the brush, just the first coat of paint. Because we're gonna, once we put it back together, we'll bring it in the garage and actually spray it. But we got the brakes off. Now we're trying to get the hubs off. Already got that side off. So we had the 3-jaw puller on it, and we had to heat it up with the torch a bunch. But So there's these two pieces. This is the plate that the brakes ride on, and it has that in it for the brakes. Then this goes on the outside, and this is what holds the seal. All right, here's the clutch kit for the Ford 8N. I believe this is the same part number for Steiner tractor parts. You can get it online from a couple different places. 8N parts are really common. Here's the disc. That's what it comes with. This pilot bearing. This is what goes in the flywheel. Throwout bearing. Comes with a input shaft tool, so you use this to align the clutch disc. And then the pressure plate. Okay, let's get the flywheel ready to be installed. We already have the new ring gear on. Now let's put the new pilot bearing in. This is the old one. It's the new one. I have this Loctite 638 retaining compound that I'm going to use to help keep this bearing in place. Alright, now we can put the flywheel on the tractor. So there's two dowel pins you have to get lined up. Forgot about this. It's not a big deal. Now that it's on the dowel pins securely, it's not going to fall off. Also going to put a little bit of red Loctite on. Alright, now we're going to torque these to 45 foot-pounds. I couldn't find a proper spec online. I found a bunch of different numbers, so 45 seems about right. It's most important to get these tightened evenly. Now I'm going to torque these to 20. Alright, now to put the throwout bearing on, I'm going to put a little bit of grease where the bearing slides. So you want to make sure that slides nice and easy. Now we have to put these springs on. Alright, everything that has to be in there is in there. Throwout bearing, flywheel, clutch disc, pressure plate. So now we're gonna try to roll it together. The problem is we took apart the axle bearing, retainers and stuff, and hubs, so we can't put the rear tires on as it is. So we can only roll the front half, which it's hard enough to roll this engine hoist when it's on flat concrete. But we'll try it like this. Alright, we got the splines to go on. Push that tire. Push the tire. Just push it forwards. Hold on. Alright, these bolts didn't have lock washers when I took it apart, but I'm putting it back together with lock washers.
Over there, right?
No. Okay, for the clutch adjustment, there's one adjustment. It's right here. So there's about 2 inches of play, and to make the adjustment, you have to take this pin out, and then you can turn this eye bolt in or out. Now we're going to connect these stabilizer arms, put a little bit of grease in those, then put the tie rods on. Alright, now that we have the front wheels back on the 8N, we're going to try and move it inside to finish putting the hubs and brakes back on. Alright, we just got some parts in for the Ford 8N. We ordered all this stuff from yesterdaystractors.com. First we got brake shoes, 2 for each side, axle seals, a bunch of gaskets for the axles because there's a bunch of plates, you'll see. These other cork gaskets for the axles, transmission plug gasket, oil plug gasket, gasket for the PTO. These snap rings hold the axle nuts on. Little rubber isolators, more rubber, another rubber thing. Radiator cap, this plug for the PTO cover. This pad for the radiator. I think it goes between the hood and the radiator. Another drain plug gasket. 2 brake hardware kits, and then it also has this long felt seal that goes around the outer brake housing. PTO seal, but you don't actually need this if you buy the updated PTO shaft. So this PTO shaft has the bigger coupling on it, so you don't need an adapter. But you still need an overrunning clutch depending on what implement you're using. Then radiator hoses and just a 3-point pin. Alright, let's start putting these hubs together. A little bit of grease on here just as a pre-lubricant before the gear oil makes it up to the axle housings. Okay, first I'm gonna put a little bit of RTV silicone where all in between on both sides of all the gaskets, just as extra protection. Alright, this side actually only has one shim, so only have to deal with one of these. And then these are going to have a threaded hole in the top and the bottom, so keep that in mind. From this side. Now we can just tighten these down until the sealant starts to squeeze out the sides a little bit. Alright, now that the hub assembly is on, it's time to put the brakes on. Here's what we have for brake parts. We have new adjuster springs, the spring retainers, the felt that goes around the outside. Here's the brake plate we had. New brake shoes. Here's the hub. Then these new clips that go around that axle nut to hold it on. New gaskets. And here's the drum. Before we put the brakes on, let's install the new seal in this seal retainer. So here's the seal. So I don't have anything big enough to hit along the whole outside, so I'm just going to use a punch and go around, work it around. It's clean now. To install the seal, we want it, let's see, we want the lip facing this way, so the inside there, because it's going to slide onto the axle like that, and you always want the lip facing the side that's containing the fluid. So I'm just going to tap the outside. So keep going all the way around till that bottom's out, and then that gasket goes there. I'll put some RTV on that, but let's get the rest of the brakes on. One more thing. Let's talk about aftermarket parts. These are probably made in China. No, they're made in India. But regardless, they're made super cheap. So if you look close at those threads on this adjuster, they're like rolled down. And it's a little bit hard to turn this. So this is the adjuster. I actually used the original one on the right side because the original one was in good shape. And this is the aftermarket one that I'm going to use for the left side. The threads on this one look good, and I took a wire brush and knocked off the burrs on there and knocked off any burrs here. So now I'm going to put some anti-seize, or you can put some brake lubricant, but anti-seize will work well on these threads because it's common for these to rust solid and you won't be able to adjust your brakes. Alright, first step, Let's get the brake shaft installed, because you can't do this once you put the plate on. So this plate goes like that. This piece goes towards the front. And you don't need any gasket behind here. This lip from the bearing retainer comes out far enough, and that actually is what that cork gasket rides in. Now I'm going to put some of this Sil Glide on the seal. This is just a silicone lubricant. Make sure you have the right shoe. The top and bottom are a little bit different. You want this metal piece, you want the smooth side facing out, like that. And these pieces go through here. Now this green spring, the biggest one, holds these on, and I have this tool this is a drum brake tool, so it has 3 different functions. One on the end is for putting springs on. This side of the handle is for putting springs on, and this side is for taking them off. Grabs on and stays in the middle, so it makes it a little bit easier. A little bit easier is the key word. Definitely worth getting one of these, even just a cheap one. There it goes. And this one goes from this hole to the top. Now this is the hardest part, getting the adjuster on. What I did for the other side is you put this spring on, because you have this hole here. There we go. Now we have to pry these apart enough to get this adjuster in. This is why drum brakes are stupid and they don't put them in anything anymore. Alright, got that adjuster in. And the point of that spring is to hold this end of the shoes together and also keep the adjuster from turning. So you can get one of these tools. This is meant for adjusting drum brakes, but it's just basically a screwdriver. And you can reach in there. So you're supposed to go through this way. And these old nuts are kind of nice. They're thicker or wider than nuts you can get now. Now we have to put that hub on before we can put the drum on. A little bit of anti-seize on the axle. Two-inch wrench. It would be better to do this with a socket. I'm just gonna get this as tight as I can. And then once I get a 2-inch socket, I will tighten these down with an impact more. Now there's 4 flathead countersunk screws that hold that drum on. You don't really need these because the lug nuts will hold it on, but I'll put them back in with anti-seize, so it'll help taking them back out. Alright, I'm gonna end this video here. It's probably pretty long by now. So to recap, we split the tractor, put a new ring gear on, new clutch, pressure plate, clutch disc, throwout bearing, all that stuff. And we also took the wheels off, the hubs off, put new axle seals, brake shoes, hardware, and cleaned up everything. So the next step before we can start putting stuff back together is paint. So I'm gonna make that another video, painting it and finishing up putting everything on. We already painted the hood. We're getting ready to paint everything you see here right now. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next one.